Alright, the next chapter in our little cameras for 3D cinematic and Previs series is exporting this character rig from Maya. So what I've got is I have this extremely rudimentary rig created for this main character, which we see in the cinematic here. And it's got her same proportions roughly, so you can see that it's got basically roughly the size of the hips and that same height. The torso might be a little bit longer, just by a tad, but I think I can live with that because a previs character rig is not going to be used for final animation. It is very specifically used to block out all the animation you're going to do for that cinematic, which you will then hand that block out to an animator to go through and turn into your final animation. It's basically like doing rehearsals for a theater show before you actually start doing final lines for the production. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to export this so that all my controls are working and that the character is at world space 0. You'll see that world space 0 is where these black grid lines intersect, and that's where if I look at my master controller here, you'll see that translate X, Y, and Z are all set to 0. All my rotations are set to 0, so it's a very clean, it's an extremely clean orientation, and if I move that character off of that world space 0 position, all I have to do then is come in here to translate X, enter 0, and it snaps back right into center, which is very clean and easy. So a couple things I need to do before I export this. Number one, I want to make sure that my grid size is actually going to be the same size as what I'm going to be working in my final shots. So I'm going to go up to, I'll do a couple of things. First I'll go up to Window, and we want Settings and Preferences, and under Settings, now I prefer to work in meters. The reason being that a lot of architecture in film and game engines work in meters as well, and so I want to be as, I want to minimize as much scaling that I have to do later on as possible. So I just double check that my working units are indeed meters. I'll save that. And up under Display Grid Options, I'll just reset that, apply and close, and you'll see my grid suddenly pops out in all directions. So that just lets me see a little bit more clearly that my character is indeed at world space 0. And because I did that really fast, I'll just show that one more time. So I went Display Grid Options. Options is always that little white box. And I just went Edit, Reset Settings, so just reset to the defaults, and once I hit Apply, that created that nice large grid space for me there. Okay, so a couple things that are wrong with this character, and the reason why I can't export it right away. So at the moment, I've got this controller master driving the whole character, which is awfully exciting. Very fun. But at the moment, my IK handles are constrained to that controller. But you'll see, check this out. I have my arm IK selected, and you'll see I've got this little selection happening towards the world space 0. That means that part of the IK is still referencing the world space 0. It's not actually following that master controller, so that's the first thing that we need to deal with. So I'll select all those IKs and shift select the master controller. By shift select, I mean I've got all these IK handles selected. I'm holding down shift on my keyboard, and I'm also left click dragging at the same time to grab that master controller. And I'm just going to hit P for parent. And what that's done is it has connected all of those IK handles to this controller, which means if I move it around now, each of those IK handles should follow it. Now what I've got here is everything is connected to this master controller. So if I move that master controller around, it takes the entire character with it, which is exactly what I want. If I just imported master controller, or referenced it at the moment, I can't really tell that it's actually meant to be Yolanda. So I'm just going to double click on that and give it a proper name so that when I bring this character into a scene, I can tell exactly who is who in the outliner. And with that character selected, I shall go to File, Export Selection Options. My file type, I've got a Maya ASCII file, and I have include options, history, channels, expressions, and constraints turned on. It is extremely important that this is turned on, because if it's not, all your constraints in your rig are going to break. So let's just see what it looks like at default. When you just go reset settings, at default, it's Maya binary. So we'll switch it back to Maya ASCII. At default, it says preserve references. So if I've got anything being referenced into this character, it's going to preserve that. And then, of course, it has our history, channels, expressions, and constraints. Alright, I'm happy with that. I'll go export selection. And here's my little selection window. And I will be exporting that as car for character, Yolanda Previs, and this is version 2 at this point. And I'll go export selection. Okay. And if I just go File, Open Scene, I can open that right now and just make sure that everything's gone through okay. It is very important to always test your exports before you try working with them in another environment. That looks like all the functionality is there. Just make sure I can move her. And yep, everything still works just fine. Okay. That is clean and easy. Alright, and the next chapter we're going to focus on is setting up the Maya scene, where we take this character and we take this prop set piece, which is this train, and we build a Maya scene that includes these, and then we start building some characters from there. So let's create a new Maya scene, and in the next tutorial we will set that up.